Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the fascinating teachings and writings of the guide Xuefeng, the founder of the spiritual community Life Yuan. Specifically, we're going to unpack a really remarkable text from his works known as the Five Great Dialogues. In this text, the guide Xuefeng outlines an incredibly vivid, literal journey through different spiritual realms, conversing with some of the absolute most iconic figures in all of human history. It's a massive, bold text that literally attempts to unify religion, science, and history into one single overarching framework.
So, here's our roadmap for today's journey. We're going to cover 1. Satan and cosmic balance, 2. Jesus and true faith, 3. Buddha and the supreme God, 4. Lao Tzu's cosmic philosophy, 5. Mao Zedong's spiritual fate, and we'll wrap up with 6. The ultimate vision. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Satan and Cosmic Balance.
Okay, so the text kicks off with the guide Xuefeng recounting this dreamlike journey. And you know what's wild? His very first stop isn't heaven. No, it's a direct face-to-face confrontation with Satan to demand the return of his followers. Now, to really grasp this confrontation, we need to understand the setting. Xuefeng's journey starts in what he calls the Great Void, or the antimatter world. In his teachings, this antimatter world isn't just some vague mystical idea. It's an eternal, totally non-physical realm where spiritual entities actually operate and maintain the structural equilibrium of the entire universe. It's essentially the backstage of reality. So, Xuefeng gets there, meets Satan, and basically accuses him of sabotaging Life Yuan by luring his followers away. But Satan pushes back, and he drops this fascinating quote: "If too many people entered Life Yuan, who would go to hell? Who would replace the diminishing animals?" You see, according to the source material, Satan is actually not presented as purely evil here. Instead, he's more like a strict, totally impartial enforcer of God's cosmic symmetry. He specifically targets people with strong egos just to make sure the balance of the universe holds up. Satan's argument is basically, if absolutely everyone is saved, the whole cosmic system collapses.
Section 2. Jesus and True Faith.
Frustrated by Satan's super-rigid cosmic logic, Xuefeng leaves and seeks out some comfort. He ends up in a deeply emotional meeting where he literally falls to Jesus' knees, totally overwhelmed by humanity's stubbornness. You see, Xuefeng is terrified that people just aren't going to believe his message because it doesn't line up perfectly with traditional dogma. And this right here brilliantly illustrates a huge distinction the text makes. Jesus actually reassures Xuefeng, explaining that organized religion has often become too focused on strict, outward forms. True faith, on the other hand, is all about loving your neighbor and connecting spiritually way beyond institutional boundaries. Jesus tells him flat out that true believers worship with their hearts, not just through outward rituals.
But Xuefeng asks a very practical question, right? He asks, well, how will people know I'm not a fake prophet? The text then lays out 3 highly specific criteria from Jesus for spotting false prophets. First off, they appear out of nowhere, using flashy miracles just to confuse people. Second, they completely lack a comprehensive, hard-earned knowledge of how the universe actually works. And third, they ignore God's true will in favor of self-promotion. So Jesus essentially validates Xuefeng here by pointing out that Xuefeng isn't using cheap magic tricks. He's out there doing the complex, slow, and really methodical work of explaining the universe's mechanics to humanity.
Section 3. Buddha and the Supreme God.
So, looking for a roadmap for his earthly mission, Xuefeng heads over to meet Buddha. He complains that he just doesn't have enough time to explain this incredibly complex antimatter world to humanity. But Buddha gives him a very practical step-by-step roadmap to follow. Step 1. Write the book of preaching first. Use that to synthesize existing human knowledge and lay down the groundwork. Step 2. Only when the conditions are exactly right and humanity is fully prepared, then reveal the deep secrets of the antimatter world. It's a massive lesson in patience and really cosmic timing.
Following that, Xuefeng takes things straight to the top. He approaches the Supreme God. Feeling totally overwhelmed by the chaotic state of humanity, Xuefeng actually suggests that God should just instantly format human thinking. Just wipe the slate clean and fix everybody's mind. God's response is surprisingly humorous. He says, "If I instantly formatted human thinking and turned them into robots, it wouldn't be fun." This highlights an absolutely core theological point in Xuefeng's writings. Human free will, complete with all of its painful struggles and religious confusion, is actually an intentional feature of the universe. It's not a bug.
So what's the real issue then? The crucial point is understanding Xuefeng's core grievance to God. The source material outlines that humanity is completely fractured right now. On one hand, you've got theistic worlds, completely ignoring the very real, scientific realities of the universe God created, and on the flip side, you have atheistic scientific worlds chasing material gains while completely ignoring the divine sanctity of life. God instructs Xuefeng that his exact mission is to unify these fractured paths once and for all, bringing together the ancient teachings of the prophets and the latest, cutting-edge scientific discoveries.
Section 4. Laozi's Cosmic Philosophy. This mandate for unification leads Xuefeng over to Purple Cloud Island, which sparks a genuinely fascinating literary debate in the celestial realm with the ancient Taoist sage Laozi. Xuefeng brings up a famous, honestly rather harsh line from the Tao Te Ching, which is usually translated as, "Heaven and earth are ruthless and treat all things as straw dogs." Well, Laozi tells Xuefeng that history got the punctuation entirely wrong. By just shifting the punctuation, Xuefeng audaciously reinterprets the ancient text to mean, "Heaven and earth use benevolence as the root of all things." It completely flips the philosophy. It takes us from a cold, indifferent universe to one that is fundamentally rooted in kindness and benevolence.
And the crazy part is, this benevolent universe extends right into the afterlife. Xuefeng asks Laozi to look out for Life Chanyuan's 8 immortals. In this cosmology, the afterlife isn't just some solemn, quiet heaven where everyone sits around on clouds. No, it's a lively, joyful community in a place called the Fairy Islands continent. Immortals literally visit each other, they play games, they enjoy nature. It's this incredibly vibrant vision of eternal life that completely reshapes how we might view our ultimate destination.
Section 5. Mao Zedong's Spiritual Fate.
Now, as Xuefeng is getting ready to leave, Laozi asks him for a quick favor, to go help a stranded historical figure. Xuefeng arrives at the three-realm transit continent, which is essentially this giant cosmic waiting room. And who does he find? He finds Mao Zedong, right there, arguing with an angel. The central mystery the text unpacks here is absolutely fascinating. Why is this massive, world-altering historical figure stuck in cosmic limbo, totally unable to move on to either heaven or hell?
So, Mao is super frustrated. He's arguing that he was a revolutionary, just like the Prophet Muhammad, so why did Muhammad get to go to the divine realm while he's stuck waiting? Xuefeng neutrally unpacks this comparison based on the theology of the source text. He explains that while both of these figures fought for the poor, Muhammad's rebellion was driven by a deep reverence for God and a sense of personal humility. In stark contrast, Xuefeng argues that Mao's rebellion was ultimately driven by arrogance and a complete, utter lack of reverence for the divine or for nature.
What the text provides here is a remarkably nuanced spiritual audit of Mao Zedong. Xuefeng openly acknowledges Mao's real historical success in elevating the poor and crushing feudalism. But because Mao acted as a law unto himself without any reverence for God or nature, he ended up leaving a massive ideological void, which caused a lot of modern spiritual emptiness. So, what's the final cosmic verdict? Well, because he genuinely cared for the suffering of the poorest people, sending him to hell would be completely unjust. But because he lacked reverence for the divine, he is disqualified from heaven. Thus, he's stuck in limbo, at least until Xuefeng can advise him on how to finally earn a place as a free-roaming immortal.
Section 6. Life Chanyuan's Ultimate Vision.
This entire journey through the antimatter world ultimately brings us right to Life Chanyuan's grand synthesis of human thought. When we start connecting the dots across all these different dialogues, we can see exactly how each figure contributes a very specific puzzle piece to Xuefeng's overarching spiritual framework. He learns the strict laws of cosmic balance from Satan. He receives the true criteria for faith from Jesus. He gains a methodical teaching roadmap from Buddha. He unlocks a deeply benevolent interpretation of the universe from Lao Tzu. And finally, he applies all of this wisdom to guide even the most complex secular figures like Mao. It is the whole shebang, a true grand synthesis of human thought.
And so, what is the ultimate end goal of this grand synthesis? It's what the text calls the life visa. This is a spiritual pass, described as being granted by Xuefeng, meant specifically for those who truly wish to enter the heavenly realms. But the absolute most important takeaway here, as established by his conversations with Jesus and God, is that this visa has nothing to do with joining a specific organized religion. It is granted strictly to those who genuinely revere God, respect nature, and love humanity. It completely transcends all traditional religious and secular boundaries. Which leaves us with a genuinely fascinating final question to ponder based on the teachings of the guide Xuefeng. If, as the text argues,
True believers aren't defined by organized religion, and even massive historical figures with good intentions can end up in cosmic limbo just because they lack reverence. Who ultimately earns the life visa to heaven? It's a thought that challenges us to completely rethink the traditional boundaries of salvation and spirituality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this gave you a clear, engaging look into the incredible cosmic teachings of Life Chanua.